Hi guys, I came across a poem about a year ago that I absolutely love. It's called The Hound of Heaven by Thompson. It was written in 1893. And the language in this poem is a little old-fashioned, but oh my goodness, is it beautiful. And I want to read this poem to you and talk about the incredible depth of meaning in it. But let me just give you a little bit of background. The Hound of Heaven is the idea of that relentless hound hunting down a soul. It's really a picture of our God who wants to bring somebody into his kingdom, and that soul is on the run, looking anywhere for safety to get away from that hound of heaven. So there's a lot of old language in this poem, but we'll talk about it, and I think maybe through the context you'll understand it just fine. Listen as I read to the music of the words, and then see if you can track with the ideas being presented in this. The Hound of Heaven by Thompson. I fled him. Down the nights and down the days I fled him, down the arches of the years. I fled him, down the labyrinthine ways of my own mind, and in the midst of tears I hid from him, and under running laughter. Up vistaed hopes I sped, and shot, precipitated, adown titanic glooms of chasmed fears from those strong feet that followed after, but with unhurrying chase and unperturbed pace, deliberate speed, majestic instancy, they beat, and a voice beat, more instant than the feet. All things betray thee, who betrayest me. I pleaded, outlaw-wise, by many a hearted casement curtained red, trellised with intertwining charities. For though I knew his love who follow it, yet was I sore adread, lest having him I must have naught beside. But if one little casement parted wide, the gust of his approach would clash in too. Fear wist not to evade, as love wist to pursue. Across the margent of the world I fled, and troubled the gold gateways of the stars, smiting for shelter on their clanged bars, fretted to dulcet jars, and silvern chatter the pale ports of the moon. I said to the dawn, be sudden, to eve, be soon. With thy young sky blossoms heat me over from this tremended lover, float thy vague veil about me lest he see. I tempted all his servitors, but to find my own betrayal in their constancy. In faith to him, their fickleness to me, their traitorous trueness, their loyal deceit. To all swift things for swiftness did I sue, clung to the whistling mane of every wind, but whether they swept smoothly fleet, the long savannas of the blue, or whether, thunder-driven, they clanged his chariot thwart a heaven, plashy with flying lightnings round the spurn of their feet. Fear wist not to evade, as love wist to pursue. Still, with unhurrying chase and unperturbed pace, deliberate speed, majestic instancy, came on the following feet. And a voice above their beat, naught shelters thee, who wilt not shelter me. I sought no more, that after which I strayed in face of man or maid. But still within the little children's eyes seems something that replies, they at least are for me, surely for me. I turned to them very wistfully, but just as their young eyes grew sudden fair with dawning answers there, their angel plucked them from me by the hair. Come then, ye other children, natures, share with me your delicate fellowship. Let me greet you lip to lip. Let me twine you with caresses, wantoning with our Lady Mother's vagrant tresses, banqueting with her in her wind-walled palace, underneath her azure dais, quaffing as your taintless way is from a chalice, lucent weeping out of the dayspring. So it was done. I in their delicate fellowship was one. Drew the bolt of nature's secrecies. I knew all the swift importings of the wilful face of the skies. I knew how the clouds arise, spume it of the wild sea snortings. All that's born or dies, rose and dropped with, made them shapers of mine own moods, or wailful or divine, with them joyed, and was bereaven. I was heavy with the even, when she lit her glimmering tapers round the day's dead sanctities. I laughed in the morning's eyes, I triumphed and I saddened with all weather. Heaven and I wept together, and its sweet tears were salt with mortal mine. Against the red throb of its sunset heart I laid mine own to beat and share commingling heat. But not by that was eased my human smart. In vain my tears were wet on heaven's gray cheek, for we know not what each other says, these things and I. In sound I speak, their soul is but their stir, they speak by silences. Nature, poor stepdame, cannot slake my drouth. Let her, if she would owe me, drop yon blue bosom veil of the sky and show me the breasts of her tenderness. Never did any milk of hers once bless my thirsting mouth. Nigh and nigh draws the chase with unperturbed pace, deliberate speed, majestic instancy, and past those noised feet a voice comes yet more fleet. Lo, naught contents thee who content'st not me. Naked I wait thy love's uplifted stroke. My harness, piece by piece, thou hast hewn from me and smitten me to my knee. I am defenseless utterly. I slept, methinks, and woke, and slowly gazing find me stripped in sleep. In the rash lusty head of my young powers I shook the pillaring hours, and pulled my life upon me grimed with smears. I stand amidst the dust of the mounded years. My mangled youth lies dead beneath the heap. My days have crackled and gone up in smoke, have puffed and burst as the sun starts on a stream. Yea, faileth now even dream the dreamer, and lute the lutanist. Even the linked fantasies, in whose blossomy twist I swung the earth a trinket at my wrist, are yielding, cords of all too weak account for earth with heavy griefs unplussed. Is thy love indeed a weed, albeit an amaranthine weed, suffering no flowers except its own to mount? Must, designer infinite, must thou char the wood ere thou canst limn with it? My freshness spent its wavering shower in the dust, and now my heart is a broken fount, wherein tear-dripping stagnates, spilt down ever from the dank thoughts that shiver upon the sightful branches of my mind. Such is what is to be. The pulp so bitter, how shall taste the rind? I dimly guess what time and mist confounds, yet ever and anon a trumpet sounds from the hid battlements of eternity. Those shaken mists a space unsettle, then round the half-glimpsed turret slowly wash again, but not ere him who summoneth. I first have seen enwound with glooming robes purpureal, cypress crowned. His name I know, and what his trumpet saith. Whether man's heart or life it be which yields thee harvest, must thy harvest fields be dunged with rotten death? Now of that long pursuit comes at last on hand the brute. That voice is round me like a bursting sea. And is thy earth so marred, shattered, shard and shard? Lo, all things fly thee, for thou fliest me. Strange, piteous, futile thing, wherefore should any set thee love apart? Seeing none but I makes much of naught, he said. And human love needs human meriting. How hast thou merited? Of all man's clotted clay, the dingiest clot? Alack, thou knowest not how little worthy of any love thou art. Whom wilt thou find to love and ennoble thee? Save me, save only me. All which I took from thee, I did but take not for thy harms, but just that thou mightst seek it in my arms. All which thy child's mistake fancies as lost, I have stored for thee at home. Rise, clasp my hand and come. Halts by me that footfall. Is my gloom, after all, shade of his hand outstretched caressingly? Fondest, blindest, weakest, I am he whom thou seekest. Thou dravest love from thee. who dravest me. Old language. I warned you. Oh, but you guys, it is so beautiful. Let me talk with you about it and show you the incredible things that this poem says. What you have is the soul who recognizes the footsteps of the oncoming Hound of Heaven and says, oh no, I do not want that Hound of Heaven. He even says, I knew his love who followed, but I was dreading it because I was afraid if I had him, I could not have anything else. I knew that love, and yet I thought, no. And then the poem says, this one here is crazy words. I had to look it up. Fear wist not to evade as love wist to pursue. That wist means to know in past tense. So fear did not know how to evade. Fear couldn't hide as well as love could pursue. Isn't that beautiful? So then he runs, can't find an escape because this Hound of Heaven is constantly coming with that deliberate speed, that majestic instancy, coming, they beat. So he goes to all the servants of the Hound of Heaven and he says, help me. But it turns out that their traitorous trueness, their loyal deceit, well, their loyalty belongs to the Hound of Heaven. And so they were a traitor to this soul, wanting to turn him over to the Hound of Heaven. Fear cannot hide as well as love can pursue. Still, with unhurrying chase, unperturbed pace, coming, constantly the feet of the Hound of Heaven. And he says, no one's going to shelter you because you won't shelter me. And then he says, okay, I give up on man or maid. I give up on people. But then he says, oh, but children can be the thing to whom I turn. Do you think maybe some of us sometimes turn to children when we're avoiding God? Even our own children, we think, oh, life is so hard, it's so difficult. Maybe I can find hope in having kids. Maybe I can find hope in placing my hope on my kids. Well, that didn't work. And then he turned to nature. He said, oh, nature, let me come to you. And it was a beautiful thing for a while. There was an incredible verse here about his connection with nature. But then he said, but not that. Not by that was eased my human smart. You know, when something smarts, it hurts. That ache in my heart would not be satisfied by nature either. Nature cannot quench my thirst. It says, nature cannot slake my drought. Nature was not meant to be our savior. And then, unperturbed pace, deliberate speed, majestic instancy keeps coming the Hound, saying, not contents thee who contents not me. Nothing can make you content when you don't find yourself content in me, the Hound of Heaven says. And so the soul says, I give up. Here he comes. You can have me. I'm dying. The years are over. I have spent my entire youth running from this Hound of Heaven. There is nothing left. And he starts to just quake in fear and question this Hound of Heaven. He says, must thou char the wood ere thou canst limn with it? Limn means light. Do you really have to burn the wood before you can use it for light? And that's us, our souls. It's going to get worse, isn't it? But what does he discover instead? Instead, what he discovers is the ultimate love. You see, the Hound comes at the very end and he says, strange, piteous, futile thing. Human love needs human meriting. You have to earn it if you're going to be loved here on earth. You have to earn it. Have you earned it? Do you merit anything? No, you don't even merit the dingiest clot. You don't even know how little worthy of any love you are. Oh, that's painful. And yet, what does this Hound of Heaven say anyways? He says, but I love you. And then he says, everything I took from you, I took it not to harm you, but so that you would find it in me. That's what the Hound of Heaven says. And then he says, all the things that as a child you fancied, you imagined were lost, I'm storing away for you. I'm keeping safe for you to have forever with me. Come with me. And then he says, oh, fondest, blindest, weakest, I am he whom thou seekest. I'm the one you've been looking for all along while you've been running from me. You drive away love from yourself when you drive away me. And that is the love of our Hound of Heaven, the God who pursues us relentlessly, never gives up. And I'm so thankful for that. We try to find our hope and our love in so many other earthly things. And there comes a time where we say, oh, I give up. And that's when we finally find it, the love and hope of our incredible, good, and loving God. I hope you guys appreciated the Hound of Heaven poem and didn't mind that I read something that was such old language. I just think it's so beautiful. This has been your Tuesday Talk, and I hope you guys have a great day.